Okay. Hello, Clive. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Doug. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure. I'm in hard lockdown. It's a joy to look outside my bubble.
I was just going to say thank you for getting up so early because you're in Australia. And we've had several guests on the show from Australia. Sorry to hear you guys went back on hard lockdown. But
I had already had to postpone writers' conferences left, right, and centre, and vacations, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
yeah, did you get another spike coming back with the Delta variant or something?
Yeah, that's why we're in hard lockdown now. It's taken them a while, and I honestly still don't think they're on top of it, but I'm not pretending for 1 second that it's an easy thing to deal with. So um but yeah, this is the Delta variant, and it's quite dramatic, and it's affecting much younger people as well. So there's not that there was a little bit of complacency a few weeks back, but we've been in hard lockdown since late June. Well, in lockdown, and now we're in hard lockdown. It's a stage thing. I try very hard to keep up with all the new rules, but the new ones come through every day.
So hard lockdown means you really just can't go anywhere.
Pretty much no more than 5 kilometers from your home. No going to other people's houses unless there's an exceptional reason, like you're a carer and they need you to go and do something around that. Um, Only allowed to leave your home once for essentials, and only one person from the household can do this. And they've got army and police on the ground checking. I've not
Wow.
seen any in my neighbourhood, but apparently they've just sent in extra 500 ADF, Australian Defence Force personnel, to assist the police with compliance.
Huh.
So that's big. They're very serious, and that's in. I think that's the whole city now, and possibly the state.
You are in which city?
I'm in Sydney, which
Sydney.
is the biggest
Okay.
city in New South Wales and in Australia.
Yeah.
And regional New South Wales, that's the country areas, they weren't in lockdown until this week, and now they are, because it's been found people were travelling. Honestly, people were breaking the rules or getting around them, so they've squeezed them harder. Basically, they've upped the fines and they've tightened the rules to get on top of it.
I hope this all works out. I hope that this is not for too long.
The moment it's still the end of August, and then they'll reassess. But everyone in the know says it's going to drag out longer. I'm just hoping it doesn't take up Christmas, because most people didn't get a Christmas last year either.
So, you are an award winning author. How many books have you written to date?
I actually, interestingly, just put up a pre-order for my October novella, which is part of a collection. So there's one novel. How many books have I written, or how many have been published? I've written far more than have been published. um,
Most authors have, as a matter of fact. But
yeah.
okay, how many have
Uh,
been published?
Um, One novel, three novellas, and the sequel to my will be coming out hopefully this year, but honestly, it might be early next year at the rate things are going. One of the advantages of this situation is I think people are really hungry for content to consume. I'm certainly reading a lot more, so that's good.
Well,
Um,
that's one advantage of the lockdowns is people have more time to stay in and read. That's for sure.
Definitely.
So your new book is called Always a Princess. Yeah? You
Yes,
want to
that's
hold it
my
up? Yeah.
debut novel, Always a Princess. It's a it's historical romance fiction set in the Regency period, which occurred between about 1795 to, it was not very long, it was only about 10 years, where in the period when the British King George lost his mind and his son had to rule as regent. And it inspired, it's best, I mean, Austen's novels are best known for covering the period, but it's a very interesting time in history for the world and also for England, obviously, which at the time was the biggest empire in the world and ever and growing. And then not long after that, about 100 years later, the empire was almost gone because World War One came in 1913, so almost 100 years later.
This would have been the early 1800s.
Correct. 1795 to about 1810 is what they call Regency proper. The king died in 1820, King George, and then there's sort of a 10-year period, which is sometimes called late Regency, even though there wasn't a regent, mainly because of the art and the fashion at the time, because he was quite a fashionista at the time, and he built the Brighton Pavilion, he got a lot of beautiful buildings done, nearly bankrupted the treasury to do it, but he was a very big patron of the arts and all of that, and that all comes from that era. It was a big, important time in British history. Catholic emancipation was a huge political issue. The Marriage Act, you couldn't legally wed, changed in 1835. People were going abroad to marry people that they couldn't marry in England. All sorts of massive changes happened legally, and the idea of romantic love was newish in the Regency era, which Jane Austen celebrates in her novels. But prior to that, marriage was very much a career move for a lot of people and a matter of contracts, and it was quite cold. It wasn't what we think of it as today, and that we think of it this way comes from that period where people were transitioning from a partnership of basically quite numbers and estates and figures to the idea of companionship and actually getting along with your spouse and actually wanting to be with someone you liked and who actually liked you. That's a relatively new idea.
Yeah, I think so. And in fact, I think Queen Victoria, who would have been the next monarch at that point, said that people should always marry for love, even though she was arranging all the marriages for all of her daughters. The only one that actually got a choice was Edward, but he had to pick out of 5 or something like that.
The Victorian era was almost a reaction to the rather wild times of the Regency era. It was known for wildness. Everyone who could afford it had a mistress or several. And we're talking about the nobility here. And the nobility were the celebrities of their day. They would be the people with the 15 million Instagram followers now, if they live now. Well, the royals still are, but and I mean, look at Byron. Byron was the first proper celebrity.
Yeah, that's true.
His life was really incredibly wild, even by today's standards. And I think he'd do better today than he did back then. He had to leave England for good because he liked to sleep with men and women, and that wasn't cool. He could get hung for that, hanged.
Speaking of love, one of your talking points, which I wanted to ask you about, it says, monetizing love with dating apps. Love, kindness, and our mental health should not be for sale. Okay, monetizing on a dating app? You're going to have to explain that one.
I know people who have met life partners on Tinder and Bumble, and they're very happy. I do think they're an exception. And I do think dating apps capitalize. I said to someone, a friend of mine who recently came out of a very horrible divorce after 30 years of marriage, which is a big change. And they were on all the dating apps within 10 days of separating from their partner of 30 years. Spent no time healing or anything. And they said that they were very confused about, they were trying to read things into everyone's messages and what do they mean and you know, and they showed me a lot of them because I'm a girl and he was a boy, a man, I should say. And he's like, it's been a long time since I've done this. And I said, well, for a start, I don't personally believe that dating apps are about finding love. A lot of them are about avoiding loneliness, and that's not the same thing. There's a very big difference in grabbing at someone because you don't want to be alone and choosing consciously to be with someone because you think they're awesome and you're awesome when you're with them. There's a very big difference in those two energies. And I think a lot of dating apps do what's easy and cheap, which is to exploit people's sadness. And I don't think that's healthy or helpful. But I do understand why it makes money.
Certainly, yeah.
One of my very first paid writing gigs out of university was writing fake profiles for a dating app. So perhaps I'm a little jaded. And when my brother found out, who was at the time on one of the first ones that was around in Australia way back when, he was quite horrified. He goes, so some of the girls I'm seeing were written by you and they're not real? I'm like, probably. He's like, oh, that's so gross. Because, you know, it's my brother. We're very close in age, and I've got to say, the first time I tried a dating app some years later, one of the first people in my top 3 matches was him. And I thought, oh, well, that's a little algorithm glitch right there. Because there's no way to tell he's my brother, obviously. No one uses their full name or anything. Because if we're searching age range, we're both in each other's age ranges. We have similar interests. We grew up together, so we have similar lives and and all of that. And like I came up in his quite often, and that was enough to put both of us off.
Yeah, I could see that. The problem with dating apps for me, and I have used it very sparingly, not in a long time because I've been married now for 15 years,
Congratulations.
but at the time they were kind of in their infancy. And I never really liked it too much because A, most people were just looking for sex, and that was it. And B, you never quite knew what you were going to get. And when you said that you were making fake profiles for dating apps, that would just put me off right there. Aside from when you met the person and you compared it to their profile and they bore not the slightest resemblance to it.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I still like the old-fashioned way of meeting people in person, if they're
Me
going to
too.
be for that.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what I prefer the at a bar or coffee shop or something, but you have to have the courage to approach, which I think the apps remove that. And I think if you remove everything that takes guts in human interaction, how are you going to get to love, which is a massive act of courage?
Absolutely. Yeah. You should stay
And
home at that point.
yeah, I mean, if you're so scared to talk to someone that you've got to fake your name and fake your picture, and then maybe you need to take some time and learn who you are and how to love that person before you demand that someone else do it.
I think that's a very great sentiment. And on that, we're going to have to wind this down a bit. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yeah, clyverose.com is my website, and where my blog. I keep my blog and my newsletter sign up. I'd love more readers. I'm also on Facebook under Clyve Rose Author, and Twitter, Clyve Rose, Instagram, Clyve Rose. There's only one of me, pretty much.
Okay.
So with a Y. There is a cricketer, but he spells his name different.
So the
And I
book,
don't play cricket, so it's very different.
okay. So the book is called Always a Princess. Is the book out now?
It is. It is. It's available on Amazon in all countries, and I think South America.
Hold it up a little higher.
I think it might be available in Mexico. I'm not sure.
Okay. How long has it been out?
It's been out for several months, and the sequel should be coming out. I don't have an exact date, but by Christmas. I'm hoping it'll make a great Christmas read.
Okay. How's it doing?
Pretty well. It's getting periodic boosts. The digital version is doing better than the paperback, to be honest. That might be because Amazon was a bit slow for a while with the paperbacks. It just got messy, and I think people have just gotten used to using Kindle. I don't mind. I just love that people are reading my words. I don't really mind what format they read it in. I personally prefer paperback, but I do both. I read both quite happily.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your book and sharing your story.
My absolute pleasure.